We'd like to give a special shout out to the following people for making this episode and the rest of Act 3 possible. Louis, Malaya, Reg, Daniel Athern, Osterkim, Vanna, Finch, Dr. Dan Venning, Sleepless Berry, Court, Rogue Canoe, John and Muna, Sadie, Zay the Great, Elliot Kane, and Trident. Thank you for your support. Maraming salamat. You're listening to Hainai by Motsi Dapul. Episode 83, Alingawngaw, Part 1.
Hi DJ, thank you for all the information you've been providing about staying safe with everything that's happening. I know nobody's sure about what's going on, but people have been noticing the weird stuff. I've tried to tell family and friends about the tips that one guy gave, Danny. Surprisingly, a couple of them are actually listening to me about it. And maybe because I'm not the only one who's noticed how much more dangerous Toronto feels this winter. The isolation, the fear. I don't know if I can pinpoint exactly when it began. Maybe the Dollhouse Club incident at Halloween. I've always followed weird haunted Toronto stories, so obviously I've heard a few freaky incidents over the years, some even ending in people dead. So I know how real this stuff can be. But I've never seen or heard so many stories happening all at once. I mean, you understand, obviously. I remember when you barely had enough interviews to fill your bi-monthly time slot, and now, it feels like you're rushing to get 3 stories out a week. But like I said, weird stuff's been happening in Toronto, and it's only gotten worse. My story feels trite in comparison, which is why I didn't bring it up in the moment it happened. I think you had someone on whose grandpa died, and I didn't really want to follow that with my story since no one actually died. Well, okay, people did die before the story. That's why it's so haunted. But not when I was there, So it didn't feel right. But I took time to think about it, and I realized that if I didn't share my story, there might be a chance that more people won't take the whole thing seriously, if there aren't enough reports, So I guess I'm reporting. I actually joined this group, kind of like a support group. They've all gone through something similar. I think maybe a couple of them have told their stories on your show, but I'm still trying to convince some of the other ones to call in. They've talked a lot about things I've never fully experienced, but still, I'm glad I got connected. Okay. So, I live in this small apartment complex just off Eglinton. Small, though it's probably one of the taller buildings in the area, It's not like downtown or anything. It started construction in the 90s, finished around the early aughts, so it's not like one of those high-rises or whatever. Not a new place, but not quite as old as a lot of the places in Little Jamaica. And when I moved in, I thought it was pretty nice, even if the neighbors seemed a bit cagey. I'd knock on their doors with some desserts that I baked to introduce myself, like my mom taught me, and they'd look at me like I was crazy, but whispered advice to me like there were these secrets no one else could hear. And it was a lot of weird advice. But most of the residents were on the older side, so I didn't think much of it at first. At first, they said that if I was up after midnight, I might hear some noise outside my apartment. And they told me never to look outside my door, not even through the peephole. Second, they said at night, around 1 a.m., if I hear a sound coming from the ceiling, don't look up. Which is fucked up, because I sleep on my back, and if I hear a sound when I'm in bed, I didn't think for a second they were messing with me, though. They looked too serious to be joking around, though maybe I'm just bad at reading social cues. I guess that's why the rent was so cheap, though. They said it didn't happen every night, just sometimes. There was, one guy. Serious old man with wool white hair all over his arms and face. He told me a little later in the same week that it was getting worse. That it was happening way more often than it used to. Something out in the hallway at night. The sounds from the ceiling at 1 a.m. Shadows at the window after dark. And these bugs that were full of blood when you squashed them. Like mosquitoes, but they looked nothing like mosquitoes. He also said they hung around come wintertime, which obviously doesn't make sense. I didn't want to ask him if he was messing with me, and I especially didn't want to ask him if everyone was messing with me. I didn't want to make enemies, especially in a building full of sweet old people. He let me into his apartment because I had cookies, and his daughter comes home around the same time asking how many he had, because apparently he couldn't have too many. Not that I'd know that. And she asked me if her dad grifted cookies off me, and I told her about his advice, and she looked pretty serious when she told me it was good advice, that I should follow it if I'd be living there. She said she didn't live there in the building, just visited sometimes, but she used to, back when her parents were still together. She grew up in that apartment complex, and she kept trying to get her dad to move out, but he was stubborn. Said they'd been handling it for years, and it wasn't more than an inconvenience that popped up around the same time every year, and a couple of times throughout, especially when the nights were dark and long around wintertime. Something happened when she was a kid. Something that never happened before. That's why her dad sent her to live with her mom when she was 14, before she moved out to make it on her own. It was this ghost story that all the residents knew, but there was history behind it. Apparently, the place used to be a house that got set on fire twice, once in the 80s and again in the 90s. First time the house caught fire, there was apparently only one survivor. 2 parents and a daughter pass away, but the son survived. And even after the fire, most of this house still stood, this abandoned, burnt-out husk, cordoned off, but never demolished. I guess the surviving son owned the house, but didn't do anything with it for a hot minute. And, why would you, right? If you had such an enormous trauma tied to it and all that. Unfortunately, that led to another tragedy, because in the 90s, 2 teenage boys entered the house, and only one of them got out. Another fire. The police didn't say much about the incident, but after that, the house got demolished, and they built the apartment complex over it to avoid any more incidents like that one. And as soon as people moved in, the stories started. Now, like I said, I love urban legends, ghost stories, I love the history, and I love getting creeped out. But with how serious the other residents were about their warnings, I actually followed their advice when I heard weird sounds around the apartment late at night. I didn't look out the window, I didn't go out in the hallway, and I invest in some novelty eye masks in case I hear a ceiling thump or two. But I was so curious about what the others saw. I couldn't stop thinking about it. It's partly why I kept bringing desserts around to the neighbors and asking them about it. And the lady, this old man's daughter, she tells me so much. And she tells me about the building's history and the 2 fires. And then she told me about her experience before I had my own. When she was a kid, she used to see hands in the window. At least that's how she described it. But in the daytime, when the sun was out. That's why she remembers it so clearly. Because daytime wasn't supposed to be scary. But she saw it then. Handprints on the window. It didn't bother her before because she just assumed it was one of her parents or their friends who came to visit. But she noticed it, thought it was weird because it was upside down. Every time she saw a handprint or 2, they were upside down. And one day, she actually got curious, so she decided to try and wipe the handprints off the window. And that's when she realized the handprints were outside. They were made on the outside of a 5th floor window. She was 8. She didn't tell her parents about it, but they did put up some curtains a couple weeks later. And she realized that some of the things her parents told her weren't normal when it came to the other kids. Sure, it was normal to tell her not to be out past 11. Sure, it was normal to tell her not to answer the door to anyone after midnight because if someone was meant to be there, they'd have a key. But it wasn't normal to cover up the apartment people so that no one could see out into the hallway. But she believed it when her dad said the peephole was broken and they didn't have time to get it repaired. It was normal to keep the curtains drawn at night for privacy and all that, but it wasn't normal how angry her dad was about it when she forgot to close her curtains one night. She started her teenage rebellion earlier than her friends because her parents started fighting when she was 11 and getting divorced when she was 13. And one of the things she ended up doing was breaking house rules, peeling the tape off the definitely unbroken peephole, keeping her curtains open, staying out later than usual until her dad dragged her home. And when they finalized the divorce, she's 14. And one night, she comes home after midnight and her dad grounds her. She didn't care. Then he promised she could go out to see her mom's new house in Libertyville. She didn't care either. She didn't care about anything, she said. Until she woke up that night and saw something on her ceiling. Okay, not something, but someone. A boy. Her age, smiling at her, upside down, hanging straight down from the ceiling, arms outstretched. And his smile and hands were wide, wide open, and so were his eyes. When she blinked, his skin turned to ash, and his bones charred. And he's still smiling, still reaching closer and closer, and close enough that if she blinked again, he would be touching her. And she screamed and screamed until her dad broke her door down. And she told him what she saw, and they saw upside-down handprints on her window that are all blackened now, like they've been covered in ash. The neighbors all came out that night, gathered together in the lit-up hallway, and one of them said he saw the boy too, and told the rest to buy themselves some eye masks and avoid looking up past 2 a.m. And another asked if they should get a priest in, but the man said he tried. Had a priest bless his home, prayed to Jesus every night, lit candles, even saged his apartment till the sprinklers went off. None of it worked. But what could they do? They couldn't report it to the police. They never would believe him. And even if they did, what could they do? And she begged her dad not to make her sleep there again. And he agreed. Sent her to her mom's for the week. Her mom took it seriously too. And they had a big blow-up argument about it until her mom told her the truth about the place. Her mom told her that things were okay as long as they followed the rules, as long as they kept the curtains closed and didn't look out in the hallway past midnight. But the 2 a.m. visitor in her room, that was new. She didn't want to go back, and her dad didn't force her. The divorce was amicable enough, and the court's decision was to let her stay in her childhood home with lots of visits to her mom until they, as a family, decided to let her live with her mom, with lots of visits to dad that didn't go past 8 p.m. And she missed home, of course. Little Jamaica was her community. She spent lots of her week there, even after the move. But what happened to her was real. And she didn't care to test fate a second time. When she checked her room every so often, even after the move, that's when she started finding these little red bugs full of blood. And they're not ladybugs. They're not like anything she recognized. Just like crawling blood bags. But that was after her time. After she told me that, I wasn't eager to experience the same after midnight visitor, so I followed all the rules, and I kept following them. And on the bright side, I made friends with her dad, though she made me promise that if I was bringing him sweets, that I should keep him to 2 cookies a visit because he really needed to be watching his health. Let's call him Mr. L. Mr. L and I got along great for a while. I bragged to my friends that I was living in a real haunted apartment, and they kept trying to tell me to get some evidence, even if I insisted I didn't want to have to risk having to move out when I literally just moved in. Especially with how cheap the rent was, because, Toronto's expensive, okay? This was before the support group, by the way. And that was after. But the support group told me something that made me remember this weird detail. And you might know something about it, so... One time, I was walking home, and I saw this guy. And I noticed him because he had this cute little black cat peeking out of his pocket, which I thought was absolutely adorable. And he's standing outside the apartment, looking up at it like there's something really bothering him about it. And I almost didn't want to talk to him because he looked really, really serious about something. But I wanted to ask him about the pocket cat, so I said hello. And he still looked serious when he acknowledged me, but not, unfriendly. So I asked about the cat, and he said that if he didn't take her on adventures, she'd go off on her own, so he was living the cat dad life so she wouldn't get into trouble without him. And he let me pet her, this adorable little black cat with yellow eyes, and eventually he asked if I lived in the apartment. And I confirmed that I did, and he asked if I knew about the ghost stories, if I'd ever experienced one of my own. And I told him I did. And I asked him if he used to live there too. And he said he never lived there, no, but it held a lot of memories for him, regardless. I didn't understand at first. He must have noticed my confusion, so he mumbled something about a fire, and I realized that he must have been one of the survivors. One of the survivors of one of the 2 fires that preceded this building's history. Probably the reason the building was so haunted in the first place. I blurted out what little I knew about the fire, and he casually pointed to a spot on the front lawn and said that's where he was when the house burned down. He was lucky, he said. His best friend wasn't. They were just 14. And that got me thinking about the lady's story, Mr. L's daughter. I guess we can call her A. I mentioned it to him, the after midnight visitor, the boy her age, when she was 14. and he looked at me with wide eyes and then asked when this happened. I told him it happened years ago, and nothing major since then, but from what my neighbors said, the hauntings never really stopped, and lots of people moved out of the building once the rules were broken, and they saw something they couldn't take back. I promised myself I wouldn't break those rules, and for a while, I succeeded. For a while.
You're listening to Hainay by Motsi Dapul. Hey everyone, it's Motsi, creator and showrunner of the Hainay podcast. Hainay is a podcast produced by Motsi Dapul, Yoy Halago, and Alyssa Jimenez, and licensed under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 4.0 International License. This episode was co-produced by Jesse Goodsell and written and directed by Motsi Dapul. The role of DJ in the Dark Caller, Maren, was played by Alex Nursall. If you'd like to chat with other listeners when this episode goes live, we do a live premiere every Sunday at 9 p.m. ET or Toronto time on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/HainayPod. To help support the production of Hainay, you can subscribe to our Patreon, patreon.com/HainayPod. You'll get to be part of our early access program, where we release episodes 3 days early on Thursday at 9 p.m. ET or Toronto time. You can also get bonus video, audio, art, and much more. Speaking of Patreon, we'd love to give a special shout out to the following patrons for all their amazing support: Petra, Emily Cole, Maha, Sai B.A., Prinks Variety, Didi Chenak, Chandra, Tony Baloney, Nay, Boyo, Phoenix Luna, Kate Jordan, Sabine, Ben, Jess No, Nonette Dapul, Mika, Matthew Upton, Anna, Sooks, Becca Terrier, Melissa, Flying Cabbage, Faye Fungi, Pablo Neurotic, Oster Kim, Megan, Jesse Goodsell, Malaya Light, and Victoria Goodwin. Thank you for all your support. If you subscribe at the ATET tier or the $10 tier and above, you get bonus episodes, bonus content, the full B-sides, and you get your name shouted out on every episode in the credits, just like our wonderful supporters here. If you can't subscribe monthly, you have the option to buy us a milk tea on Ko-fi. That's ko-fi.com/HainayPod. Our ad-free Hainay album, which has our official music and full episodes from Act 1 and 2, is also available for both patrons and to purchase on our coffee shop. Check out our website, hainaypod.com, for more info, and follow us on all our socials, on Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, Facebook, and Blue Sky, and even our YouTube posts, at HainayPod, for updates and more information, especially when we have special events. And as always, thank you, we love you, and hanggang sa muli.